Wait the fuck up, samurai. We have a city to burn.
Thank you for joining us on the test bench. I don't like reviewing games before I fully played them, but Cyberpunk 2077 reportedly has hundreds of hours of gameplay, and I don't want to release my review next June. Cyberpunk 2077 is a fun game, but as it stands at the moment, it's plagued with issues. It reportedly runs terribly on the original PS4 and Xbox One, and terribly on computers with the minimum recommended specs. While the PS4 and Xbox One are 7-year-old hardware, if you're going to sell a product that runs on them at full price, there's an expectation that the product runs acceptably. The PS4, Xbox One, and low-end computers mostly have issues with assets not loading or loading inappropriately, which seems to be traced to an inability for these systems to load assets when the game needs them. The good news is that there have been 3 patches since launch, aimed at increasing performance, so CD Projekt Red is taking this seriously. I noticed several odd things when playing myself, even though my system wasn't plagued by the litany of bugs others have experienced. I had a case where one of the quests didn't complete, but a restart fixed it. Occasionally while driving, the car will slow for a moment while my character T-poses through the roof. I noticed if my character was wearing a hat, her hair was missing in the mirror, and no matter what, her shadow was always missing hair and headwear. I also noticed the occasional NPC pop out of thin air to join the crowds. And speaking of popping out of thin air, cops don't seem to have a car chase AI, and when I stop to fight them, more keep randomly spawning in around me like the game features teleport technology, which doesn't. The biggest sin here is that, after seeing epilepsy warnings on every video game I've ever bought since 1993, this game has an effect that is near guaranteed to cause an epileptic seizure. There is a concept in Cyberpunk 2077 called a brain dance, which is like VR except it also contains touch, smell, taste, and emotional content. I won't show the effect here for obvious reasons, but I'll explain it. The little rectangles I'm highlighting are strobe lights, which flash individually and randomly. I do not have an HDR monitor or an epileptic condition, but the effect was intense enough to hurt my eyes and cause a pain and a line in the left side of my brain. I don't know who invented this effect, and how seemingly no one but them saw it before the game went to market, but they shouldn't have. If you are epileptic, I would recommend skipping this game until this is fixed, or only play it if you have someone in your household who can tell you when the sequence has stopped firing while you close your eyes and look away from the screen. As it stands, I wouldn't recommend playing Cyberpunk 2077 on anything older than a GTX 1060 with either a Ryzen 5 or i5 processor made in the past 3 years, and at least 16 gigabytes of RAM, and installing the game on an SSD or NVMe drive. As a PSA, regardless of what system you're running Cyberpunk 2077 on, you'll want to turn off film grain, chromatic aberration, depth of field, lens flare, and motion blur. You'll also want to set Cascaded Shadows resolution to medium or low. The ones you want to turn off are settings that dump camera-like special effects onto the game, which is already full of stunning visual effects, and it turns what you're seeing into a staticky, color-incorrect mess with blurred objects in the distance, which is not how the human eye sees. Now, that's all the bad stuff out of the way. I didn't see any immediate problems because I'm playing on a high-end PC, so Cyberpunk 2077's presentation and story hooked me from the beginning. Your character can start with one of 3 life paths, which start you out in the slums surrounding the city scavenging for a living, as a street top, or a corporate employee. While all roads lead to the main story, each life path has a good 1 or 2 hours of gameplay to set the tone for your character. I don't want to spoil too much of the story I've uncovered so far, but it feels sort of like a Dickens novel in that characters and events usually come back later in unexpected ways. The soundtrack is phenomenal, and the game has a setting to stop it from playing licensed music, so you can stream it on platforms like Twitch without a record company torching you. Night City is gorgeous on ultra settings with ray tracing. Right now I'm rocking an RTX 2080 Ti, have ray tracing set to medium, and DLSS set to ultra performance, netting me between 50 and 60 frames a second. Something I noticed is that while not all buildings show up in ray traced reflections, they are awe-inspiring enough, and combined with how it makes shadows cast across characters, and the dazzling realism of sunlight, and how it makes small light sources reflect off surfaces, this is the first game to convince me that ray tracing is the way of the future. I've never seen anything like it in another game. I have an RTX 3090 coming in on December 14th, so next week I'll be able to show the performance difference between the 2080 Ti and 3090 in this title, so stay tuned. Also, speaking of technical achievements in this game, it's a small detail, but I noticed something interesting in the way characters pick up and put down objects. In most games, if a character stops holding an item, the item simply disappears, and we accept it. But in the case I'm highlighting here, Evelyn puts down her purse on the bar, then proceeds to pick it back up after the conversation is over. Normally in a game, the purse would simply disappear from her hand and appear on the bar, then disappear from the bar and appear back on her hand. I've noticed this gimmick in several locations where characters pick up and put down bags or drinks. Cyberpunk 2077 is very adult, and I'm not just talking about swear words and dialogue. At the very beginning in character creation, you have the option of customizing your character's breasts if they have any, and genitalia. It's presented in a straightforward manner, just like customizing your nose. Night City's red light district is similarly adult, with porn shops, brothels, strip clubs, and streetwalkers. Additionally, one of the quests deals with freeing a character you had previous professional contact with from sex traffickers. All of this is played straight, and I'm really looking forward to the outrage from parents who bought this game to babysit their 12-year-olds, the same way they bought Grand Theft Auto 5. Cyberpunk also makes RPGs complicated again, which I love. The basic mechanic of skill trees and base stats is nothing to write home about, but the fact that you need to juggle weapons and armor and their upgrades, in addition to upgrades and acquisition of your implants, and even the computer running your software, gives you a breadth of choice not seen in many other games. Which makes it odd, then, that you can't customize your basics after character creation. There is seemingly no place in Night City to get a tattoo, haircut, or hydraulic penis upgrade. Yet I can have my internal organs ripped out and replaced with robot parts. I'd imagine these basic looks customization options will be patched in at some point, considering the engine is capable of them, and it was probably just an oversight. The best way to describe Cyberpunk 2077 is someone sent Deus Ex, Grand Theft Auto 5, Saints Row 4, Outer Worlds, and Far Cry 5 to one of the Ripper docs in the game, and created a homunculus out of the best parts of each. So, do I recommend the game? Yes and no. If you have a relatively powerful computer and are willing to put up with some bugs, pull the trigger. If you're on a PS4, Xbox One, or low-end computer, leave it be. If you're somewhere in the middle and are intrigued by this game, but don't want to put up with bugs, wait until the price drops to $40 or $30, or even get the version that will be packaged with the DLC a year from now, to make sure the kinks get worked out. As always, thank you for joining us on the Test Bench. Now, if you excuse me, I've got a city to burn. Like this video and subscribe to the Test Bench. Feel free to join us on Facebook. Back us on Patreon if you want to help us show you more cool stuff. And follow us on Twitter. Thanks for watching. And be sure to check out our other videos.